The water rushed around them, cold and unforgiving. As he pulled her to shore, neither knew their lives would forever change. Sometimes rescue comes in unexpected forms, and sometimes the person who needs saving isn't the one drowning. Like this story? Hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional tales that will touch your heart every week. The current dragged at Marcus's legs as he waded deeper into the river. The woman's head had disappeared beneath the surface again, her arms flailing weakly against the rushing water. His heart hammered in his chest, not from exertion, but from fear. He'd promised his daughter he'd return from this fishing trip. He'd promised her he wouldn't leave her alone in this world. But he couldn't stand by and watch someone drown. "Hold on," he shouted, though he doubted she could hear him over the roar of the water. The spring thaw had turned the normally placid river into a churning monster. Marcus had only come to this secluded spot because it was his day with 8-year-old Lily, and she was staying with her grandmother while he caught dinner. A peaceful afternoon shattered when he'd heard the screams. The woman had been clinging to a fallen tree branch that extended into the water, but it had snapped, sending her tumbling into the current. Now she was being swept downstream, her expensive-looking blazer and slacks weighing her down. Marcus dove forward, swimming with powerful strokes. Years of morning laps at the community pool, his only luxury as a single father working 2 jobs, had prepared him for this moment. He reached her just as she went under again, grabbing her arm and pulling her to the surface. "I've got you," he said, his voice steady despite his racing pulse. "Don't fight me." Her eyes were wide with terror, mascara running down her face. She nodded weakly, allowing him to wrap his arm around her chest as he kicked toward shore. The current fought them, but Marcus was stronger, fueled by determination and the thought of his daughter waiting for him. When they finally reached the rocky bank, Marcus dragged them both onto solid ground. They collapsed side by side, gasping for breath. The woman coughed violently, water spilling from her lungs. "Thank you," she managed between coughs. "I thought I was going to die." Marcus sat up, pushing wet hair from his face. "What were you doing out here alone?" She looked away, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. I needed to clear my head. My driver dropped me at the scenic overlook. I wanted to walk along the river, but I slipped on the rocks." She shivered violently. "I'm Alexandra Winters." The name struck a chord. Alexandra Winters, CEO of Winters Technologies, one of the largest employers in their small town. Her face occasionally appeared in the local paper, usually announcing another company expansion or acquisition. "Marcus Reeves," he replied, too exhausted for formalities. Alexandra tried to sit up, wincing as she moved. "I think I've twisted my ankle." Marcus glanced at the sky. The sun was beginning to set, and the temperature would drop quickly. They were at least 2 miles from the nearest road, and his truck was parked even further away. "We need to get you warm and dry," he said, assessing their situation. "My fishing cabin is about half a mile upstream. Can you walk if I help you?" She nodded determinedly, though pain flashed across her face when she tried to stand. Marcus supported her weight as they slowly made their way along the riverbank, her sodden designer clothes dripping a trail behind them. The cabin was little more than a shack, a one-room structure with a wood stove, a small table, 2 chairs, and a narrow cot. It had belonged to Marcus's father, and now it was the one thing he owned outright. No mortgage, no payments, just a place where he could escape and teach Lily to fish, just as his father had taught him. Once inside, Marcus quickly lit the wood stove. The small space would warm up fast, but Alexandra's wet clothes were a problem. "You need to get out of those wet things," he said matter-of-factly, rummaging through a trunk for the spare clothes he kept there. "I have some sweatpants and a flannel shirt. They'll be too big, but they're dry." He handed her the clothes and turned his back, giving her privacy in the small space. He heard the rustle of fabric, then a hesitant voice. "Will you stay if I undress?" she asked, vulnerability replacing the confidence he'd expect from someone of her position. "I'm still shaking. I'm afraid I might fall." The question hung in the air between them. There was nothing suggestive in her tone, only fear and exhaustion. Marcus kept his back turned but stayed. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. "Just tell me if you need help." More rustling of fabric, then a soft thud and a gasp of pain. Marcus turned to find Alexandra balancing on one foot, her blouse half unbuttoned, her face contorted in pain. "My ankle," she explained through gritted teeth. Without comment, Marcus helped her to the cot and knelt to examine her injury. Her ankle was already swelling, the skin turning an angry purple. "It's not broken," he said after gentle probing, "but it's a bad sprain. You need to stay off it." He helped her finish changing, his movements clinical and respectful. When she was finally dressed in his 2 large clothes, her wet hair plastered to her head, Alexandra Winters looked nothing like the powerful CEO whose company had denied Marcus a job 3 years ago. She looked human. Vulnerable. Real. As the cabin warmed, Marcus made tea on the wood stove and called his mother to explain the situation. Lily was fine, already asleep after an evening of baking cookies. He'd be home as soon as he could. "Your phone works out here?" Alexandra asked, sipping the hot tea gratefully. "Only in this exact spot by the window," Marcus replied with a small smile. "I should call someone for you." Your driver must be worried. Alexandra's expression darkened. No driver. I walked away from a board meeting. No one knows where I am. She met his eyes. I was having a panic attack. First one in years. Everything was closing in, and I just ran. The confession seemed to surprise her as much as it did him. Marcus sat in the chair across from the cot, studying her. Running a company like Winters Technologies must be stressful, he said neutrally. She laughed without humor. You have no idea. Everyone wants something from me. The board, the shareholders, the employees, the community. I'm drowning in expectations. Her eyes widened at her choice of words. Well, I was literally drowning today, too. Why were you alone? Doesn't someone like you have security or assistance or something? I ditched them. She looked almost proud. Sometimes I need to remember what it's like to be just Alexandra, not CEO Winters. Marcus nodded, understanding more than she knew. After his wife died, leaving him alone with a 3-year-old daughter, he'd often escaped to this cabin just to remember who he was beneath the grief and responsibility. I applied for a job at your company once, he said, surprising himself with the admission. Engineering department. I was qualified, overqualified, actually, but I got rejected. Alexandra frowned. When was this? 3 years ago. After my wife died. I needed better health insurance for Lily, my daughter. She has asthma. He shrugged. It worked out. I found 2 part-time jobs instead. Less money, but flexible hours so I can be there for her. Something shifted in Alexandra's expression, recognition, perhaps, or guilt. What's your background? Mechanical engineering. I specialized in sustainable energy systems. But the only company developing that technology around here is yours, and, well. He gestured vaguely. Alexandra was quiet for a long moment. Our HR department handles thousands of applications. I don't personally. I know, Marcus interrupted. I'm not blaming you. Just making conversation. The silence that followed was broken only by the crackling of the fire in the wood stove. Outside, darkness had fallen completely, and rain began to patter against the roof. We should stay here tonight, Marcus said, checking his phone. There's a storm moving in, and that path will be treacherous in the dark, especially with your ankle. Alexandra nodded, looking both relieved and apprehensive. What about your daughter? She's with my mother. They'll be fine. He smiled slightly. Lily will be thrilled that I'm having an adventure. She loves stories. How old is she? 8. Smart as a whip and twice as sharp. Pride softened his features. She's the reason I get up every morning. Alexandra's expression grew distant. I always thought I'd have children someday. But then the company took over my life, and suddenly I was 35, then 40, and now. She trailed off. The board members call me the Ice Queen behind my back. They think I don't know. People fear what they don't understand, Marcus said simply. And they rarely try to understand what they fear. Alexandra studied him with new interest. You're not what I expected, Marcus Reeves. What did you expect from the guy who fishes in this river every Thursday? I don't know. Not someone who quotes philosophy and has an engineering degree. Marcus laughed. Life rarely goes according to plan. I was supposed to be designing renewable energy systems, not fixing HVAC units at the community college and bartending on weekends. And I was supposed to be happily married with 2.5 children, not running my father's company after he dropped dead of a heart attack at 52. Alexandra's bluntness surprised even her. Sorry. I don't usually talk about that. The near-death experience loosens the tongue, Marcus said. Or maybe it's just easier to talk to a stranger. You're not a stranger anymore, she replied softly. You saved my life. The rain intensified, drumming against the roof. Marcus added wood to the stove and prepared the cot for Alexandra, using his fishing jacket as an extra pillow. He would sleep on the floor. As he arranged a makeshift bed for himself, Alexandra watched him with curious eyes. Why did you do it? She asked suddenly. Jump in after me? You could have died too. Marcus considered the question seriously. Because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try. And because I want Lily to grow up knowing that helping others matters more than personal safety sometimes. Even if it meant leaving her without a father. The question hit him like a physical blow. I didn't think about it that way. I'm glad you saved me, Alexandra said quickly. But your daughter needs you more than a drowning stranger does. Marcus sat heavily on the floor beside his makeshift bed. Maybe you're right. But I still would have jumped. Because you're a good man. Because I'm human. And so are you, despite what your board members might think. Alexandra smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. It transformed her face, erasing the lines of stress and revealing the woman beneath the CEO facade. They talked late into the night as the storm raged outside. Alexandra spoke of the crushing loneliness at the top of the corporate ladder, of decisions that kept her awake at night, of the company her father had built and the legacy she was determined to protect. Marcus told her about Lily's battle with asthma, about working 2 jobs to make ends meet, about the engineering designs he still sketched late at night when he couldn't sleep. When morning came, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean. Alexandra's ankle was still swollen, but she could put weight on it with Marcus's help. They made their way slowly back to civilization, Alexandra leaning heavily on him, still wearing his too large clothes. At the main road, Marcus called a taxi to take Alexandra back to her office. As they waited, an awkward silence fell between them. "Thank you," Alexandra said finally. "For everything." Marcus nodded. "Take care of that ankle." She hesitated, then reached into her purse, remarkably still intact after her ordeal, and pulled out a business card. "Call my office on Monday. Ask for me directly." "Why?" "Because Winters Technologies needs someone with your skills. And because I owe you." Marcus shook his head. "You don't owe me a job." "I'm not offering charity," she said sharply. "I'm offering an opportunity to the most qualified candidate who happened to save my life. Take it or leave it." The taxi arrived before Marcus could respond. Alexandra handed the driver a credit card and then turned back to Marcus. "Monday," she said firmly. "And bring your designs for those sustainable energy systems." As the taxi pulled away, Marcus stood on the roadside, the business card clutched in his hand, wondering if the events of the past 24 hours had been real or some elaborate dream. Monday came, and Marcus found himself in the imposing lobby of Winters Technologies, wearing his one good suit and carrying a portfolio of designs. The receptionist's eyes widened when he asked for Alexandra Winters. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked skeptically. "She told me to ask for her directly," Marcus replied, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. The receptionist made a call, speaking in hushed tones. A moment later, the elevator doors opened, and Alexandra herself stepped out. She wore an impeccable charcoal suit, her hair perfectly styled, her ankle wrapped in a professional brace beneath designer heels. Only a fading bruise on her cheek hinted at her ordeal. "Marcus," she said warmly, extending her hand. "Right on time." The receptionist's jaw dropped as Alexandra led Marcus to the elevator. Inside, once the doors closed, Alexandra's professional demeanor softened. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she admitted. "Neither was I," Marcus replied honestly. "I don't want special treatment." "Good, because you won't get any." Her eyes sparkled with challenge. "The head of R&D is waiting to grill you on those designs. If they're as good as you think they are, you'll get the job on merit. If not, you'll be back fixing air conditioners by lunchtime." Marcus grinned. "Fair enough." The elevator climbed to the top floor, where Alexandra led him not to a conference room but to her private office, a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the town. "Before you meet the R&D team, I wanted to thank you properly," she said, closing the door. "Not just for saving my life, but for reminding me why I do this job. Which is to make a difference. To create something meaningful." She gestured to the view. "This town depends on Winters Technologies. The people who work for me have families, dreams, responsibilities. Like you and Lily." Marcus nodded, understanding. "It's a heavy burden." "Yes, but a worthwhile one." She turned to face him directly. "That night in the cabin, you said life rarely goes according to plan. You're right. But sometimes, the universe has a better plan than we do. Is that what you think happened? The universe arranged for you to fall in that river so we could meet?" Alexandra laughed. "No. I think I had a panic attack and made a stupid decision to walk alone by a dangerous river. But I'm grateful for the outcome, nonetheless." She moved to her desk and pressed a button on her phone. "Send in the R&D team, please." As footsteps approached the office door, Alexandra gave Marcus one last look. "Ready to change your life, Mr. Reeves?" "I already did that when I jumped into that river," he replied. "Now I'm ready to change the world." The door opened, and 3 serious-looking engineers entered. Alexandra introduced Marcus with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. "This is Marcus Reeves, the engineer I told you about. He has some designs I think you'll find interesting." 6 months later, Marcus stood on a platform beside Alexandra as she cut the ribbon on Winters Technologies' new sustainable energy division. Lily sat in the front row, beaming with pride, her asthma well controlled thanks to the excellent health insurance her father now enjoyed. The journey hadn't been easy. Some board members had questioned Alexandra's decision to create an entirely new division based on the designs of an unknown engineer. Others had whispered about favoritism and inappropriate relationships. But the prototypes had spoken for themselves, attracting attention from investors and environmental groups alike. As applause erupted from the gathered crowd, Alexandra leaned close to Marcus. "Still think I gave you special treatment," she murmured. Marcus smiled. "You gave me a chance. I did the rest." "We did the rest," she corrected. "This is just the beginning." Later that evening, as they shared a quiet dinner at Alexandra's home, a regular occurrence now that they had moved from colleagues to friends to something more, Lily regaled them with stories from her school day. "And then Jamie said girls can't be engineers, and I told him my dad and Alex are both engineers, and Alex runs the whole company. Lily's indignation was tempered by the pride in her voice. Alexandra laughed. What did Jamie say to that? He said I was making it up. Lily rolled her eyes dramatically. Boys.